So, most of the leagues in England are now concluded their league phase, and we're now into playoff territory. Gonna have some fun discussing that sort of thing. Some great laughter. Really laughed at? No, well, maybe laughing at a couple. I don't know. We'll see. But we've got a lot to digest. In the Premier League, we've got a bit to. Still a bit to go, but we've got some interesting stories that are building and discussing, and I've got to discuss Liverpool again. But anyways, enough of that. Let's just do what we normally do. First couple of minutes doing a little bit of rundown of what's happened over the past week, what's going on currently as we are speaking in regards to the matches. So we started off with a match on the Friday. Leeds pretty much confirming that they are in the Premier League next year with a 3-1 win over Burnley. Very impressive for them. And then in terms of Saturday, some good matches that went on. Brentford beating West Ham 3-0. Very interesting as to the ramifications that has at the top and the bottom, which we'll look into and discuss. Newcastle getting a win against Brighton Hove Albion. That was good for Newcastle and disappointing with Brighton for sure. Wolves getting a draw against Sunderland. We will certainly be discussing a particular talking point that has not been just in this match, but matches in previous. I definitely want to talk about that as one of our big topics at the end. And then Arsenal getting a 3-0 win over Fulham. It was a good match for Arsenal, getting three goals, winning 3-0 over Fulham was huge, not just in terms of them staying top, but also in terms of the goal difference, which has been on the back of some people's minds for some reason. And then we move on into Sunday. Bournemouth beating Crystal Palace. It was hugely impressive for Bournemouth. I was so impressed by that. Manchester United beating Liverpool. I feared this would happen. I felt like it was going to happen. And I'll talk about Liverpool in a minute. I'm just going to say this outright. As much as it pains me to say it, Manchester United were the better team. Let's not get anything messed up. I mean, if we're going to just talk about the match, yes, there was a tiny little bit of momentum that went Liverpool's way after the second goal, that there was a little bit of chaos that was going on in the Manchester United squad. But if we had drawn, if we'd have won, it would have been a bit of a steal more than anything else. A cheeky little steal. But I've got things I want to discuss about that, like I say, both in terms of the match from a Liverpool perspective and then in terms of just Liverpool in general. And then Tottenham Hotspur continuing this little bit of a run they're on, beating Aston Villa. I was very thankful to see Tottenham Hotspur win, especially with everything going on. So yeah, impressive for them. And then on the Monday, we had Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest. Chelsea losing 3-1 to Nottingham Forest. What is going on at Chelsea? Everton 3, Manchester City 3. What happened there? Man City have blinked first in the title race, as we will see. But that was the Premier League. There was other stuff that was happening, because it was the final day of the Championship. It was the final day of League One. It was the final day of League Two. Now, we're going to focus on the scores from the Championship, but we are going to look at the tables from all of those divisions, because this was all going on at exactly the same time. It was wild. It was fun to watch. It was exciting to watch. And there were some big hitters, and we're going to gloss over the ones where it didn't really matter, like, so Blackburn losing to Leicester City didn't really have an effect. Bristol City beating Stoke City didn't really have an effect. But here's the thing. Derby County needed to beat Sheffield United to have a chance to be in the playoffs, and they didn't. So Derby missed out. Hull City was another match where it all mattered for the Championship final day. So was Ipswich Town. You're seeing these results. So was Millwall. So was Southampton. And so was Middlesbrough and Wrexham. There was a lot on the line in the Championship. And ultimately, this is where we stand. So let's start off with League Two, and we want to give our congratulations over to Cambridge United. They got the 3rd promotion place. They are joining Bromley and Milton Keynes Dons into the 3rd tier, starting that climb up, which is so important. And in terms of the playoffs, we're going to be seeing Salford City playing against Grimsby Town and Notts County playing against Chesterfield in the semi-finals of the playoffs to see who's going to be the one that joins them. And then, winner stays on, winner plays in the final. That's how it's going to be on that. In terms of the relegation, it was nuts. Now, Barrow, they didn't get the miracle. They did lose, 36 points they finished up with. But here's the thing. Remember I was saying Tranmere Rovers are the ones at risk? And they sort of were. And thankfully for them, they got a draw, which kept them up. Just. Newport County, though, were the ones in 23rd. They finished 20th. That win was crucial for them. No, it's 22nd, weren't it? I don't know, I can't remember anyway. But Harrogate Town, sadly, they are now out of the sort of like professional league pyramid. They're going down to the National League. So, sadly for them, they have not survived. But yeah, once again, congratulations to Bromley, to Milton Keynes Dons, and to Cambridge United for getting those automatic promotion spots to the 3rd tier of English football. So what happened in the 3rd tier of English football? Who's joining them in the 4th tier, first of all? Who's going to be dropping down? Well, Exeter City had the chance to stay up. Unfortunately, they didn't. So Exeter City have joined Port Vale, Rotherham United and Northampton Town. Those are going to be the teams that are going to be playing in the 4th tier next season. Sadly for them. In terms of the top, though, it was pretty much already guaranteed when it came to Cardiff and Lincoln City. I mean, 14 points. Cardiff lost and they still had a 14-point buffer over 3rd place. So it was kind of guaranteed. Well, no, it was guaranteed for that. In terms of the playoffs, we got Stockport County. They're going to be playing Stevenage in the semi-final, and Bradford City playing Bolton Wanderers in the semi-finals. I think 3 of those teams used to be Premier League top tier teams. That's like what we're that kind of measure we're talking. But yeah, congratulations to Cardiff and Lincoln City. They're going to be playing in the 2nd tier. Really good stuff for them. So now the Championship. Sadly, it was already confirmed, like I say, for Oxford United, that they were going to get relegated, so nothing really changed here. Ipswich Town stole the last place, the automatic promotions, and look how close it was between Millwall and Ipswich. Millwall were ready to be second if Ipswich was to lose or drop points. Millwall are on a little bit of a nice run going on, and so are Southampton. Actually, so are Middlesbrough. It's quite interesting. But here we are. We are in a situation where Millwall will be playing Hull City in the semi-finals. Southampton will be playing Middlesbrough in the semi-finals. One of those 4 teams will be in the top tier of the Premier League next season. And how about the Premier League? Where are we at with the Premier League right now? Well, let's start off at the bottom because that's probably the best place to be looking at to start off with. As we know, Burnley, Wolverhampton Wanderers, they've already been relegated. There's only 9 points left that most of the teams can get, with the exception of Crystal Palace and Manchester City. West Ham, though, losing the ground to Tottenham Hotspur. It's now a 3-match sprint between those two to see who's going to get that spot. We're now in the situation where, just looking at the points, that win for Newcastle is now pretty much guaranteed them to be in the Premier League. I can't believe I'm saying that, considering they're the richest club in the world, but they are now 9 points ahead of West Ham United, and there's only 9 points that they can get. So looking very likely the Newcastle are going to be staying up. So now there are 5 left. Leeds United, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, Tottenham Hotspur, West Ham United, all between themselves slugging it out. Looking a little bit further up, we're now talking about the Champions League places. And Manchester United have now joined Manchester City and Arsenal, and they're going to be playing the Champions League next season. Liverpool, Aston Villa, they've got a 6-point gap over Bournemouth. Almost insurmountable, but not quite. So really, really good stuff. At the very least, that they've got that chance. It's looking very likely. But the European places, Chelsea have fallen away. 6 losses in a row. They have fallen away. In fact, Chelsea are at risk of being 13th. Possibly. And here is where we stand, right? We've now got a little bit of a gap going on between Brentford, Brighton Hove Albion and Bournemouth ahead of Chelsea. They've got that buffer, that's great for them, and it does look like it'll be like the top 8 places, top 7 places that will be in the European positions in the Europa League and the Conference League next season, which is like the second tier and the third tier of the Champions League. And there is still a bit of a fight for it. We're still in a situation where, because there's 9 points left to get, or 12 points if you're talking about Crystal Palace, anyone down to 15th could still be in European football next season. Could still be in there. Really, really interesting to see where we're at. And then in terms of Arsenal and Manchester City, now we have a 5-point gap. And only 3 matches left to play for Arsenal. Even if Manchester City were to win their game in hand, they'll still be 2 points behind. So, okay. It's looking likely that we're now going to see Arsenal potentially winning the Premier League. But let's stick a pin in that. Stick a pin in that for now, because we've also got other matches that happened over the weekend. Over the last week. So starting off with the Champions League, Arsenal have now won 2-1 on aggregate against Atletico Madrid. They're going to be in the Champions League final, where they will be playing PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, in the final of the Champions League. That is going to be quite the match. And actually, I think we need to really continue to give Arsenal their flowers. Have they been pretty to watch? Have they been fun to watch? Probably not. But they have, I won't say mastered the season, because they have lost matches and it has looked like they've lost their grip, but they have performed fantastically. So well. Really, really good stuff from them. I don't think there's anyone who'll begrudge it on that. And firstly, I want to say, deserved title winners. Nice and easy to say. That's the easiest thing to say. And I'm actually quite fascinated by this Champions League final that's going to be happening between Arsenal and PSG, because Arsenal have been the team that has been controlling matches. It's not pretty football, but it gets the job done. PSG, on the other hand, it's been chaos. It's almost been total football. It's been entertaining. The Paris Saint-Germain versus Bayern Munich semi-final was brilliant to watch, both legs, and PSG have been exciting to watch. So it'd be interesting to see who comes out on top. Will it be this free-flowing attacking football? It almost reminds me of an old Liverpool Man City game. The team that likes to control and the team that likes to have chaos. Chaos and control don't normally mix. We're going to be seeing chaos versus control in a few weeks' time in the Champions League final. Very fascinating. I'm actually really interested to see what happens, who comes out on top. And I think if you were a top Premier League club, you would also be fascinated. Not quite a hate watch, but you might get a blueprint as to how to beat Arsenal if PSG do beat Arsenal. But Arsenal are now in the driving seat for a double. And quite an impressive double. So, yeah. Credit to them. Huge credit to them. Anyways. Let's pass over that. Let's talk about Liverpool. Let's talk about Liverpool and the Liverpool-Man United match was certainly a microcosm of Liverpool's entire season. Like, firstly, there were incidents that went against Liverpool. There were a couple of incidents that went for Liverpool as well, let's be honest, though. But there were a couple. The handball, that was certainly one of them, for Šeško's goal. And the Bruno Fernandes red card, as much as there's some people that are saying it isn't a red card tackle, I have seen red cards given for that. And yeah, it's sometimes not great for that, right? But in terms of it being a microcosm of Liverpool's season, let me try and explain what I'm trying to get at. Liverpool's season this season has been the result of bad luck, bad recruitment, bad decisions, and bad vibes. It starts off with the bad luck here, but actually it does marry into the bad decisions quite quickly. The one that is, like, on its own bad luck is the goalkeeper situation. Now, I'm going to say this. Freddie Woodman is performing like a second-choice goalkeeper, not a third-choice goalkeeper. I think he's had better performances than Mamardashvili. And because of Alisson's fitness, I'd almost pick Woodman to be playing more games. He looks switched on. He looks on it. So I'm really happy with Woodman's performance, but the fact that Woodman's playing, that is a bad luck situation. And actually, in terms of the goalkeeper department, that's the one area where you can't attribute it at all to bad decisions, because they've got two supposedly brilliant goalkeepers and one very capable one. That's not a problem. That is fine. Goalkeeping department still doing okay. Bad luck at number two is, I would say, the injuries at right back. Because ultimately, in what looks like it could be the future of Liverpool, Conor Bradley is the right back and Frimpong further forward, but that is the situation, and Conor Bradley is injured for the rest of the season because of the ACL situation, and Frimpong, his fitness record isn't great. It isn't. So you can sort of attribute that to bad luck, maybe. Now, when it comes to the central defenders, yes, you can attribute that to bad luck as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got Van Dijk and Canate and no other defenders at the moment, because we've got Gomez, whose fitness issues are terrible, and another defender that's injured. But this is the thing. This is now where it stops becoming bad luck and starts becoming bad decisions. Because here's the thing. The recruitment, any sane person looking at the recruitment that happened, not the attackers, let's start off in who we signed. We signed Frimpong and we signed Kirkes, our right back our left back. Now, some people saying that Frimpong being a replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold, technically no, because Frimpong is a wing-back. Have a look at his season at Leverkusen. He was rarely at right-back. He was a winger, basically, most of the time. And he played, he was being played in the position of winger. For this match, and you look at the situation of the players that we actually have had at right back, and it's kind of embarrassing. Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones, Gomez, like they have been capable players at right back. I think Curtis Jones actually did an admirable job at right back. He wasn't good as a right back, but he's not a right back, and the same with Szoboszlai, right? They aren't cut out for right back. They are cut out for central midfield. But the fact is that Kerkez and Frimpong are basically wing backs. And most of the time, you need at least 3 people defending. Anyone that would have seen that recruitment would have gone, do you know what? If we're going to be signing Frimpong, if we're going to be signing Kerkez, we need another centre-back. We need another centre-back, because ultimately we are in the situation where either we are going to be putting quite a large amount of pressure and toll on our central defenders, which could put them at risk of injury, or we're going to need 3 central defenders at the back anyway. And they didn't cover for that. They did not cover for that. We've basically got 2.5 free, right? So that's the first bit where bad luck turns into bad decisions. That yes, you could say that Leone getting injured has an impact on the season. Well, Leone shouldn't be the one that we're relying upon. The dude's 18. And again, Gomez isn't the one we shouldn't be relying upon. He's a brilliant central defender, but he is injury prone. And now let's look at attack. Now let's look at attack. We had Salah. Of course we had Salah. We had Nunes. We had Diaz. We had Gakpo. We had Jota. Jota sadly passed away. And Nunes left. And you could say that we replaced the positions in that. You can make the claim that the type of style that Diogo Jota played, that is what Florian Wirtz can do. Can be that sort of connector and bringing people together, and then Ekitike can be the one that is replacing Nunes, and actually is a pretty good replacement. Now, Diaz leaving has obviously not worked out well for us, but I'm fine with that. I'm sort of fine with that. Just like, players leave, right? Players leave. So we've got this thing going on where, okay, we're not going to replace him. We're going to put trust in Rio Ngamoa and Cody Gakpo to battle out for that left wing position. And this is where I think our priorities got messed up. Because actually, in attack, we were stocked. We had the stock we needed. We didn't need to focus on attack much more. That could be it. We could just have focus on a little bit more balance. Someone in central defence. Just working something out. But we didn't. We brought in Isak, and great, embarrassment of riches, but it's become an embarrassment. And we've had the situation where just because of everything going on, Ekitike felt like he was being not threatened, but at the end of the day, he threw off his shirt and got himself a red card, which stalled his momentum because of Isak joining. It looks like it's settled down now, but that is a situation. And maybe we're going to be in the situation where we're going to be playing almost like a 3-5-2 in the future, but again, the central defenders, I come back to it. So it's all there. That was the positions, that was the layout, that was how it was going to be. But that's not how it's been. Gakpo's been playing as a striker. And he has been frustrating to watch. And again, some of that goes down to just this style change, this stylistic change that in the past, when it was 3 up front, the wingers were the ones that were scoring more goals. And now we're in a situation where their greediness has almost become the downfall because of the fact we've now got strikers that want the goals as well. So that's concerning as well. So that is bad luck and bad recruitment decisions in a nutshell. But now I want to focus on Arne Slot, because here's the thing. That third goal that Manchester United scored, that third goal that Liverpool conceded, I predicted that about 2 minutes before it happened. I was like, oh, something bad's happening here. And I'll tell you exactly when I predicted it. It's when the substitution happened. Now, Rio Engamo was coming on, and I was excited. I was like going, that's good. That is really good. A bit of someone with a little bit of flair, no fear. That is the perfect player you need in a situation that lightens the mood of the rest of the players. So, fantastic. You're going to be taking off someone on the left? You're going to be taking off Gakpo, maybe? Or are you going to be in a situation where you're going to put Gakpo as striker and you're going to take off somebody else? Maybe like a McAllister. McAllister's been struggling. You can do some fun there and bring Frimpong back. I don't know. Are you going to do something like that? Oh, by the way, yeah, Curtis Jones is right back at the moment, so that's not working. So maybe you'll swap them out. I don't know. But no. He puts on Rio Ngamoa for Frimpong. Just think about that for a second. Ngamoa on for Frimpong. Frimpong, the only one that has had a lot of experience playing on the right side of the pitch. And you're now bringing on a left winger to replace him. Now, Rio Ngamoa is incredible as a left winger and a left attacking winger. He is not cut out to be a right wing back because that is not his style. That is not the way he plays. He thinks forward, not backwards. So what happened? We were light on that side. 2 minutes later, ball comes in down that side. Cross comes in. Mainu goal. That is on Slot. That is Slot's mistake. That is Slot's decision. Slot messed that up. Big time. That was embarrassing. And this is the thing. I don't want to do revisionism here, but I sometimes take a second look at last season and I'm like, did we give Arne Slot too much credit too soon? Or is there something else at play here? Here's the thing. I want to focus on both scenarios. Let's say that it is a case of Arne Slot. We gave him too much praise too soon. There is legitimate evidence that could support that. Mohamed Salah had an incredible season last season. That's a fact. And we know what Mohamed Salah's like. He can basically switch it on himself, right? He is that good. And then the other thing that is given to Arne Slot as incredible, he did so well at this, was the moulding of Gravenberch to this CDM role, replacing Endo, right? But I look at that and I'm going, did anyone forget was it League Cup final? Where until he got injured, Gravenberch was the best player on the pitch. I guess what I'm trying to say is how much of it was Arne Slot and how much of it was Ryan Gravenberch. He is a class player. Would anyone else have figured it out anyway? Probably. So there is some legitimate evidence to suggest that Arne Slot just got lucky. That someone like Brendan Rodgers, that someone like, I don't know, I'm just looking down the table. I can't think of another. Fabian Hertzler. That someone like Hertzler could have done it anyway, by themselves. That they just got lucky. The other theory is whether it's Arne Slot. And I think it is worth remembering Arne Slot was quite humble last year. The way he was thankful. He was like, he almost felt like he was a custodian rather than the manager. He was just looking after the team and thankful to be here. This season, though, and this is where we now go into the bad vibes, it feels like he's either checked out or now there might be some ego going on. For example, just a theory. We got the World Cup year. Is he trying to get Van Dijk, Gravenberch, and Gakpo as much coverage and airtime and playing as possible? Is there a focus on that? There does seem to be a situation where he's focusing on names way more than tactics and position. And he did the same thing again. He did exactly the same thing again that he did a few weeks ago. We finished that game with 2 defenders. Not 2 centre-backs, 2 defenders. Because after taking off Frimpong, who was one of the defenders, because Curtis Jones is not a defender, he then took off Konate for Chiesa. Now, once again, I adore Chiesa, but Chiesa should not be replacing Konate. It was a mess, and it wasn't really going anywhere because players were getting in each other's way. You had Chiesa on the right, and Wirtz trying to fill in on the right-hand side, and then Szoboszlai was there. On the left, you had Gakpo and then Gamoa, and Robertson was trying to bomb forward as much as possible, and McAllister, who again has dropped off, I have no idea what's happened to him, and it was just like, there was no cohesion. It just looked like 10 guys having a kickabout. And that's the thing. Last season, we were praising Arne Slot's tactical masterclass. There are no tactics anymore. There are no tactics anymore. There's nothing. It's embarrassing. Now, maybe it could be a blip. A season that can't be repeated, but I think there needs to be some hard questions need to be asked. If I was FSG, given the fact that Van Dijk has been a stalwart of the Liverpool squad over the past 7 years, if I was FSG, I'd be having a conversation with Van Dijk. Be brutal with us. Where do you think it's gone wrong? Speak to Szoboszlai as a similar sort of thing. Be honest with us. Where do you think it's gone wrong? Don't name names, just say what's going on. Because I would trust Van Dijk's judgment over Slot's right now. That is how bad it's got. And my goodness me, the Kop have already put Arne Slot's face on the banner, and maybe it will heal in a few years' time. But it just, It just feels like that's it. To me, anyway, I just can't see it healing. Anyway, time to talk about the big subject. Time to talk about the big subject, which is this: hair pulling. Now, just for everyone's clarity here, if you're wondering what's going on, we are not talking about malicious, intentional hair pulling that's happening between two players. We're not, right? This is not. We had a situation like that. Was it David Luiz or Willian? One of them got their hair pulled in a match between Arsenal and Chelsea, which Mike Dean was on VAR and basically said he didn't get a red card for or anything like that. But we are in this situation where three players have got red cards for what is basically, as they're running around, the hand has, like, they're stumbling, or and it might be like trying to go for try and grab a shoulder of the shirt or something like that, just a little pullback, which is allowed, and the hair's been grabbed instead. Now let's start off with the fact that I don't like seeing hair being pulled. It's not enjoyable, and it is going to be painful for the player to have their hair pulled. But here's the thing: there's two problems here. There's one problem with the law staying in place, and there's one problem with the law being changed, and that's why we're in this really weird situation. So let's start off with the problem with the law itself. In most of referees' rules, he's talking about the rules are talking about something that apply to all players, right? You know, the above knee, below knee situation, handball, all that sort of thing. Every player has got legs. Every player has got arms. Every player is wearing shirts. Every player's got a head. It sounds daft what I'm saying here, but ultimately that's the situation, right? Handball's a handball. We're not going to have a situation where somebody whose arm is like cut off here is getting less leeway than somebody who's got a full arm because they can go a little bit further down the sleeve, for example. But when it comes to hair, well, not only are you going to have some players that have hair and some players that don't, but you're going to have the situation where it is going to be easier to get red cards against some players than others. For example, if I'm on the pitch, it's going to be quite hard to grab my hair. There's nothing really much to grab here. And I probably won't feel it when someone's pinching and pulling the hair. Same with the beard, there's nothing really there. And obviously, if you're bald, then the matter altogether. Those that are wearing dreadlocks, though, those that have got afros, though, those that have got long hair and ponytails, it kind of gives them an advantage. In fact, there was a comment that was made, I think it was by someone who basically said, if I was a coach, I'd be telling all my players to grow their hair out as much as possible. So there is kind of a problem with the law there in terms of fairness, in terms of just no one's going to get a red card for a hair pull if they're playing against someone like Wayne Rooney, but they will if they're playing against someone like with someone like Adama Traore. So that is an inherent advantage that's being given to some players that isn't to others. But there is also a problem with the law being changed, because let's start off again. Malicious hair pulls should be a red card, right? If it is intentional, which it could be, that should be a red card. That is the equivalent of, aggressive movements. You do that in the street, you're gonna get accosted, or worse. And that's where it gets tricky. Because every other tackle and foul in football, referees have taken intent out of the question. Players get red cards for bad tackles, whether they went in two-footed or they slipped. Because it's what happened to the other player. Curtis Jones against Tottenham Hotspur a few years ago is a good example of that. Curtis Jones did not intend to hurt the player at the time. Can't remember who it was for some reason. I know it's a Tottenham midfielder, and I can't. For some reason I'm saying Wanyama, but I know it's not Wanyama. There was no intent. Ndombele, I think it was. There was no intent to hurt Ndombele. But as he was going for the ball, his foot rolled off the ball and landed on the shin. So it was a red card tackle, regardless of intent. And you can't really read... It makes sense, because you can't really read intent in VAR. You can't read it. You can't be looking at a screen and going, oh yeah, that player meant to hurt them, because you can't tell. Misunderstandings are going to happen all the time. You might get a little bit of an understanding based on the player's reaction afterwards, whether they're doing a get up or whether they're doing a scowl or whether they're genuinely looking out for the other player. But you can still probably fake that as a player if you wanted to. But that's the problem. If there's no intent being considered for fouls, then you can't consider intent for hair pulling. And we can't say it's allowed all the time because, again, malicious intent is still there as a thing. So it'd be really interesting to see how this unfolds, because if they are to change the law on this hair pulling situation, they've got to change their perspective on every law. And that's a big, big change. Could be looking at a completely different Premier League next season because of it. It's a bit messy. But so I suppose for now, everyone's just got to wear long wigs and just, I don't know. But yeah, it's tricky. I'm not as like I think it's ridiculous, the accidental hair pulls, but you can't really find a solution for it. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not easy to find that solution. It's challenging. But here's the thing. There is a lot to discuss in that, and there's a lot of discussion points that can be had of that. And I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know your thoughts on the hair pull situation, your thoughts on Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City. Do you know what? Just any team. If you've got any thoughts on what happened to your team over the week, any hot takes that you've got to make, I'd love to know your thoughts for that. And by the way, if you've got any hot takes you'd like me to consider in a future video, again, pop them down in the comments down below. In the meantime, guys, all that's left to say is there is an incredible week that's coming up ahead. We've got more Premier League matches that are going on, which, Liverpool playing Chelsea, Brighton playing Wolves, Fulham playing Bournemouth, Sunderland playing Man United, Man City playing Brentford. We've also got Burnley playing Villa. We've got Crystal Palace, Everton, Nottingham Forest, Newcastle United, and West Ham United, Arsenal. But that's not all, because we also have the playoff semi-finals that are starting on Friday. Hull City versus Millwall, and I'm pretty sure the other one is somewhere around as well. Middlesbrough, Southampton, and there's the League One ones, and then on Sunday is the League Two ones. We are edging closer and closer and closer to the end of the season, where we really start to find the results. In the meantime, guys, all that's left to say is like, share, comment, subscribe, and take care.